Hi everyone, Leaf Read here. So for this video, it's not exactly a book that I wanted to review. I don't have a physical copy of it because it is a virtual book. It is Umineko no Naku Koro ni. Now, I've had this in my mind for a while, and I wanted to just kind of get this out there. I don't read a lot of visual novels, but I do play a lot of games and obviously read a lot of books. But Umineko, I think, is so much in the world of games I wouldn't usually talk about. I think games are a separate thing and a separate channel. But Umineko is very important as a piece of literature, and a piece of contemporary literature as well, because it is very much related to this book that I just talked about, The Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. I've definitely noticed that there is a great deal of similarities between Umineko, and Umineko starts off as like a murder mystery, so it's more so Agatha Christie, but then it gets more and more into the world of Dante. For example, okay, so the main witch antagonist is called Beatrice. You're like, okay, that's okay, no, that's just there's lots of chicks called Beatrice, and then it talks about the underworld, and I think at some point, but then it talks about the fact that Virgil shows up, and it says Virgil's canonical name is Virgilius Pluvius Maro, which is the verbatim name of the actual author Virgil. So you're like, okay, so. It's very interesting how Virgil took from Homer, and Dante took from Virgil, and now we kind of have this crazy Japanese man who's taking from the Divine Comedy. And so, on the surface, Umineko is another typical kind of murder mystery plus anime story, and I thought, okay, it has some references to the Divine Comedy. So what? It doesn't have any thematic value. But I have to say that Umineko, from a literary, philosophical standpoint, has literally changed my life. I mean this with the utmost seriousness. This visual novel is as important as maybe the Bible in terms of its philosophy, and maybe not that important, but the way what Umineko really becomes is, and it's very hard for me to recommend it because the first, I would say, 5 or 6 books of this series are not important, because the philosophical part really comes in the last 2 books, in 7 and 8, and what it really focuses on is really the science of belief. And throughout the text, it is arguing with these two different philosophies whether love or truth is more important, in a way. So, for example, it's all about truth. It's all about, okay, how do you know this person was killed this way? And it became kind of this thing, where you're wondering whether or not, you have the author's interpretation of the events, and then you have the player's interpretation of the events, and okay, did someone really kill themselves this way? And what happens is you're presented with the magical interpretation of the events. So these are the fantastical interpretation of the events, but the main character is adamant that there's a logical explanation, and so you have to make logic out of the magic and the fantasy that is presented to you. And so you, along with the main character battler, have to actually figure out a logical explanation. And so it's very much in the science of belief, in such that you are looking for a logical explanation to a very obviously not natural phenomena. And throughout the story, Battler says, no, I don't believe in magic. I don't believe in fantasy. There's a logical explanation, and he refuses to give in, basically. You could think of him as an edgy atheist that way or something. And Beatrice, this idea of this Beatrice who challenges Battler, obviously, but in the later part, she kind of guides Battler into the philosophy of belief and ultimately love. And the main motto of the series is that without love, it cannot be seen. And I understood that, but I didn't really fully appreciate and feel it until I had actually finished the last 2 books. I had read up to I think 5 or 6, and I put it down for a while. I'm like, okay, whatever, I need to get out of this. But actually finishing this entire series and the last 2 books, I have to say it's absolutely worth it, 100%. Because the entire time you were rooting for Battler to defeat this witch, and the entire time you were assuming that everything you were being shown is fantasy, not real, and magic and whatever, and that there's a logical, truthful explanation. And there is and there isn't, because it really gets into the philosophy of what is real and what is belief, and how believing something is more real than an actual logical thing. And what it does is it turns the whole narrative on its head, where by the end of the story, throughout the entire story, it's really not very interactive. It really is just a novel. You aren't solving puzzles until really the last book. They give you these little fun puzzles to do, but at the very end, you actually have player input. You actually do make one choice at the end of the game, and it asks the player, is magic real or not? Well, actually, what it actually asks is, there's a witch who does this trick where she hides the candy in her hand and does a very sleight of hand, and in front of a child, and the question is, was this real magic or was this a trick? And before reading this story, I would have 100% said, well, it's a trick, it's truth, it's obviously logical that that the truth is more important. But the real answer is love. And Dante or Battler going through hell to come to the conclusion that love is stronger than truth is the only way he sees and realizes the truth of it, and that as powerful as truth is, love is actually stronger. And it's this kind of, it's not like an eros love or a storge love, it's a platonic, pure, a supernal cosmic rose love. And my friend for the longest time told me, you need to finish reading Umineko because you've read the Divine Comedy and you have no idea how much it ties in. I thought, okay, she's exaggerating. There's some names and some references and whatever, but until it really kicks in books 7 and 8, and you're like, oh my god, that in order to get, what is really the same thing is that in order to get to the supernal love, the real love that defeats truth, you have to go through hell. And that is the common thread between Umineko and the actual Divine Comedy. It is, Umineko is a philosophical text. It doesn't really present itself like that at times, and that's why I have a very difficult time recommending this series to anyone who is not at least a little bit nerdy or into anime in some capacity, because aside from it being kind of zany and kooky and a little bit silly at times, and being just a straight up murder mystery sometimes, I mean, I love all the characters, but even after it, there is a lot of filler. And to get to the final conclusion that Umineko gives is a long time. Apparently the book has, the series has about as many words as the Harry Potter series. So if you want to finish Umineko, you have to read the equivalent of 8 Harry Potter books, and there are 8 Umineko books. So it's not easy, but I have to say from the bottom of my heart and soul that it was absolutely worth it, because it's the philosophy of belief and how belief functions, of how belief actually works, of how belief and love actually do conquer all. Like it is more real than truth. And it is so effed up how it's flipped on you, because it's presumed, because the main character is presuming an agency or a path of truth, that is going to be the final answer, but it's actually not. And it flips it on you, and you realize, I don't know, I've been thinking of ways to like compress this idea and present it, because it is so life-changing. It is so actually important that it makes reading the Bible actually a very different experience. And it's funny because I noticed this beforehand and I hadn't really thought about it a lot, but at the end of Higurashi, his previous work, I thought it was a very Christian theme, how they had the ghost game metaphor that, oh, if the last person with the card in the game is sacrificed and takes on everyone's grief, then no one has to feel grief at all. Oh, that's kind of like a Christian thing, like Jesus dying for everyone's sins. And I kind of thought, oh, that's kind of nifty, but didn't really think about it. But Umineko is very upfront about being very, very Christian, I would say. Not even spiritual or religious, I would say just straight up Christian. It's done so well. It's absolutely, actually insane. And because of it, I have absolutely changed my life, like for the better, because it's all about the philosophy of what you believe and how that affects reality. And the road to getting there was hard and long, but yeah, it took a crazy Japanese guy to write a adaptation of Agatha Christie and Dante Alighieri's works to make me finally like appreciate life more. But yeah, there it is. And you know, it's not for everyone, I'll say that. You know, I've seen people post about Umineko and they chose the truth ending over the magic ending, and I'm just like, you read over 1 million words and you missed the point, you know. So, but I have to tell you, if you are, you know, someone who, I don't know, struggles with belief or whatever, and you've been thinking about reading Umineko, if you're someone who's considering reading Umineko, because I don't think I can convince anyone who's not into it to try it, if you've considered reading Umineko, or you've gotten partway through Umineko, I would urge you to please finish it. Please read the VN for all of us, because it is so actually deeply important. And I have never, and it has changed my view of Beatrice also in the original Divine Comedy, because she is really this messenger, this beckoning for Dante to come to love through pain and struggle. And that's pretty much what life is. You know, you're approaching this divine thing, but it's not easy to do it. But there's Umineko, and best visual novel / piece of philosophical literature involving anime and whatever that I've ever read. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. But yeah, that's it. And we've come to the end of our story of people stealing from different authors, and it's interesting where this has led us. And glad I'm here, I guess. Anyway, as always, guys, please keep reading. I'll see you later.